Good evening. Hello, my name is Jo Taylor and welcome to the Philosophy and Religious Studies Department here at Solihull Sixth Form College. I'm going to do a presentation this evening to you which will be approximately 20 minutes long, and what I'm hopefully going to do is give you a really nice overview of the two subjects that we offer here at Solihull Sixth Form College. What I'll hopefully be able to do is identify and differentiate for you the two different subjects. If there are any questions that you feel that I haven't acknowledged or included in my presentation, please type in the chat bar and I will of course do my best to answer any questions at the end of this presentation. So first of all, introduction. As I've said, we're going to have an insight into A-level philosophy and religious studies. Please note they are two separate subjects, they are not combined. And as I've mentioned, please do your best to type any questions as we go along. So there is a significant overlap between the two subjects, but there's also a significant difference between them. What you can do is either study philosophy as a standalone subject or RS as a standalone subject, which most students do. However, there are students who choose to do both, and that is absolutely fine and acceptable. What you will find is because of the overlap, you'll be at an advantage because you'll study the two subjects alongside each other. However, because there is a distinct difference between the two subjects, it's not a necessity for you to do the two alongside each other. Both subjects are philosophical, so that means we're looking at the topic of knowledge and developing our knowledge. What can we know for sure? How can we verify or falsify facts within our world? Philosophy deals with big questions that affect us all. Can we know anything? Can there be such a thing as knowing the difference between right and wrong? What is the good life? Is there a God? What is the mind? And is it the same thing as the body? Let's just look a little bit deeper at some of those questions. So this idea of right and wrong, what is morality? How is it ingrained within us? How do some people become intuitively good, and how are some people deemed as being wrongdoers or bad, and how do we judge that? What gives us the right to be culturally or religiously biased or objective to judge whether those people are good or bad? The fundamental issue is there a God is underpinned throughout a lot of the topics. What facts are there within the world that we can point to and say there is absolutely undisputable evidence that there is a God, or there is absolutely undisputable evidence that there isn't a God? And we dig deep into both of those areas to really work out if we can say for sure if there is one thing or the other thing. Okay, moving on. Philosophy and religious studies are subjects that allow you to have conversations about these questions with some of the greatest thinkers in history. We look at scholars, philosophers from 3,000 years ago. So we look at Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, some of the greatest philosophers such as St. Thomas Aquinas, Anselm. We look at Kierkegaard, and then right up to modern day philosophers such as Richard Swinburne, Peter Vardy, and we just try to see, is there information that these thinkers can impart which can help us dive a little bit deeper into these subjects. You'll be developing your powers of analysis and critical thinking. We have really good debates within the class. We don't just spoon feed you and tell you what the answers are. We really like you to try and get a balanced overview, try to really develop your own point of view and make sure that you can articulate succinctly and successfully what you actually believe about these topics, and also can you fully describe what philosophers have said. So I know this next screen looks a little bit jumbled up, but hopefully this will help you understand religious studies. I'll then look afterwards at philosophy. So this screen is exclusively for A-level religious studies. So we split the course into 3 parts: philosophy, ethics, and development in Christian thought. And all 3 parts of those are of equal importance. You will get an exam on all 3 of those questions, or all 3 of those topic areas rather. So you will need to know them of equal importance, and we give equal time between those 3 areas as well. I'll talk later on about how we examine this subject, so please bear with me. Let me just give you an overview of the actual content. So the first topic we look at is philosophy, and these questions that we look at are things such as: does the problem of evil disprove God? There has never been such a fundamental question that mankind has been asking since the dawn of time. How can evil, both natural and man-made, coexist with a God who is powerful, who is all-knowing, and who is good? So we really try to examine this idea of the coexistence of evil and God with all of his qualities, the God of classical theism. We look at what is real. How do we know that this is real? How do we know that the chair that we're sitting on is real? Can we use our senses to prove or disprove that something is real? How do we know God exists? Was he, did he exist at a point in time? Does he no longer exist? Are there multiple gods? Or is the world just a result of chance and coincidence? We look at this idea of the soul. Is there such a thing as a soul? And is it just human beings who have this unique quality, or do all animal species have a soul? What happens when we die? Does the soul go on living, or does it go into another life form? Or if it's non-existent, is that the end of us? We look at ethics. Ethics in the blue circle down the bottom. We look at this topic area about this idea of: what does it mean to do good? What is goodness? Are some acts always wrong? We can automatically think of things like murder is always wrong, stealing is always wrong. But how about when we look at a soldier in a war scenario? Is murder always wrong then? Stealing, when we look at somebody in a country suffering from famine, a mother trying to look after her children, is stealing always wrong? Can we categorically say that we can always say it's right or wrong? Or is morality dependent upon the situation? We look at this idea of utilitarianism. Would you kill one person to save 100 people? If we become quite removed from that scenario, it's easy to say yes. But what about if that one person is a loved person, a child or a parent? It doesn't make that situation particularly easy. The third section that we look at is the development in Christian thought. We have to choose one religion, and we have chosen Christianity for the very simple reason that most of the scholars that we look at in philosophy and ethics come from a Christian background, and therefore the 3 topics blend together just a little bit easier, so that there's an overlapping with the scholars. In the Christian thought then, there's ideas around the bubble there are: is faith a sufficient reason to believe in God? Was Jesus really divine? Will everyone go to heaven? Or is it predestined? Predestination is this idea that our fate is already determined, whether we will go to heaven or hell, in which case that kind of means that our actions on earth are irrelevant or meaningless because our fate has already been chosen for us. Can you still be a Christian and commit murder? How about the situation of the scholar Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who was a German who tried to assassinate Adolf Hitler in the Second World War? He was a strong Christian, but he felt that it was his beliefs that good should overcome evil could justify the action of murder. So as I say, this screen here just really succinctly overviews the A-level religious studies for you into those 3 different topic areas. We're going to move now on to philosophy. Okay, philosophy is split into 4 areas. Okay, so this is just exclusively for A-level philosophy, this screen. So let me just talk you through the 4 different areas that are studied within A-level philosophy. So we look at epistemology, this idea of knowledge. Where do we get knowledge from? And do we have innate knowledge? What makes that knowledge right? Can we use our senses to determine what we know or what we don't know? What do we know about God? Where did that knowledge come from? And can we really know anything? Okay, are we living in reality, or are we living in a almost like a computer game whereby this is not our reality? How do we know for sure? Okay, there's this really interesting scene, if you've ever watched The Matrix, with the 2 pills, the red pill and the blue pill. And with one, you get to know the truth, which is that we are sort of all part of this non-reality. And by finding out the truth, you find out that we are all sort of robots in this big game. Would you want to know the truth? Could that be feasible for mankind? Moral philosophy. How should we act? And what should we value? And can there be such a thing as knowing the difference between right and wrong? This does overlap quite significantly with the ethics that we look at within RS. But again, please don't confuse them. They are different. So moral philosophy then verging on this idea of ethics, just looking at the values of mankind and knowing what is right and what is wrong. The metaphysics of God. Who or what is God? How do we know? What do the 3 main religions, Christianity, Islam and Judaism, say about God? How do we know that that is true? Can scriptures reveal the truth? Is the concept of God coherent? Does it make sense? Does God exist? And why would an all-powerful, all-loving God allow evil and suffering? Again, we can see there's an overlap there with the philosophy within the religious studies content. And the metaphysics of mind. What is the mind? Is the mind the same thing as the brain? And if it is, how is the brain, which is just basically a gloop of physical greyish mass, able to become conscious of itself and its surroundings? If it isn't, then how can the mind interact with the brain? So this idea of how does the brain and the body interact together? What is their connection? And when we die, are they separated or are they together? Okay, so why choose us? Why choose this college for A-level philosophy and religious studies? Well, they are treated as academic disciplines. We will examine different schools of thought with vigour and precision. You will be challenged to subject your own views to critical scrutiny by engaging in dialogue with others. And as such, these are demanding and challenging courses and are not simply to be an extension of your own opinions. Whilst it's useful to have an opinion whilst you come into the classroom as to whether God exists or doesn't exist, be prepared to have your world rocked, because the foundations, the fundamentals of your belief will be challenged. We're not trying to make anybody religious, and we're not trying to make anybody atheists. But what we are trying to do is just get you to really challenge what you actually believe. Okay, as I say, our intention is never to change your view or brainwash you into a new way of thinking. It's just to challenge whether you have really thought through all of what you actually believe. It might be that over the 2 years you change your mind, you become religious or you become atheist. That's absolutely fine. The class sizes are an average of 15 to 20 students. We usually have 2 classes for philosophy and 2 classes for religious studies per academic year. So we look to have 4 classes for both subjects throughout the 2 years. And as I say, the 15 to 20 is a really nice number because it allows for plenty of debate. When I taught at a school and I taught A-level religious studies in the school, I had 2 students. And so the debate was really limited. I had an atheist and I had a religious believer, and basically the conversation was very black and white between these two students. So coming to an institution like the Sixth Form College here with a larger number of people just means that you get to share and build upon ideas that other students have, and the conversation, the dialogue, the debate just flows a bit better with that number of students. You will be taught by an experienced specialist. There are two of us here in the department. The department is really well resourced. We have a range of textbooks which are produced specifically for our courses. We have an excellent stock of religious studies, philosophy books in our Learning Resource Centre, and also we have really good documentaries on our virtual learning platform. So let's look now at the similarities between these two subjects. It might be that you already know out of these two which one you want to do. It might be that you're a little bit confused between the two. So let me just talk about what they have in common. So there is an overlap between the philosophy and the religious studies. So these topic areas are covered in both of the subject areas. So we look at secular normative ethical theories, which is utilitarianism and Kantian ethics. And we look at meta-ethical theories, which is naturalism, institutionalism and emotivism. And we look at arguments for the existence of God, teleological, which you might have looked at GCSE level, cosmological and ontological arguments. The problem of evil is also covered in both subjects, the concept and nature of God, and the quite big topic of religious language. What are the key differences between these two subjects? So in philosophy, we spend a quarter of the course on the nature and extent of knowledge. And we focus here on the definition of knowledge, our knowledge of the external world, reason, experience and skepticism. And we cover reason and experience for 2 weeks in the course of religious studies, but we study it far more in philosophy. So that's a key difference between the two, the stretching out of this subject of knowledge. In philosophy, we spend a quarter of the course on the metaphysics of mind, and it's only 2 weeks within religious studies. In religious studies, we cover religious ethical theories, so natural law and situation ethics, and those are not covered in philosophy. And for applied ethics, we cover euthanasia and business ethics in religious studies. And in philosophy, it's stealing, lying, simulated killing and eating animals. In religious studies, a third of the course content is developments in Christian thought, and none of this is covered in philosophy. I appreciate that might be a little bit confusing, but for some of you who are really looking at the detail, hopefully that has enabled you to understand how to differentiate and pull apart those two different subjects. Let's talk now about how you will be assessed. So let's look on the left-hand side of the screen. We'll look primarily at A-level philosophy, and then we'll look at religious studies. So with philosophy, the course is assessed 100% by examination. So there is no coursework. And it is exactly the same in religious studies. It is all examination based. At the end of year 13, there is no coursework. For philosophy, there are 2 3-hour papers. So one on the theory of knowledge and moral philosophy, and one on the metaphysics of God and metaphysics of mind. In religious studies, there are 3 2-hour papers. So please note 6 hours of examinations per subject. It's just that philosophy is over 2 papers and religious studies is over 3 papers. With religious studies, you have 1 paper on philosophy, 1 on ethics and 1 on Christian thought. With philosophy, the 2 papers are worth 50%, and with RS, of course, each one is worth 33.3%, so they're split into a third. What's interesting with philosophy is that you do get some smaller sized questions. Okay, so you get a 3-mark question, 2 5-mark questions, a 12-mark question and a 25-mark question. Sorry, I'll just go back. However, with RS, you just get 3 40-minute questions. So you might need, that might be worth exploring based on how you like to sit your exams. If you like just essay-based questions, then religious studies would be more the way you'd like to go. I will point out with the smaller answers that there is a very fine skill to how that they need to be answered, and you will be coached through this throughout the 2 years. So what is the entry requirements? So for both subjects, you need at least 2 GCSEs at grade 6 or above. You need 3 GCSEs at grade 4 and above, and you need to have English language and maths at least grade 4 and above. However, this is the slight difference. With religious studies, you need to have grade 4 or above in RS, and you need to have a minimum of 4 GCSEs at grade 6 or above. Please note there that there is a slightly higher requirement for philosophy, and that is reflective of the fact that the course may be deemed as a little bit more challenging. So what do students go on to do? Well, few students go on to become philosophers or theologians. All find that studying philosophy or religious studies offers support both to university applications or to career choices beyond university. Typical career progressions include law, teaching, journalism, civil service, local government, as well as many graduate training schemes. Okay, so what do you do if you are interested? Well, please go to the website solihullsfc.ac.uk/applying/step-by-step for step-by-step instructions. And you will be directed about how to apply online. You'll need to create an account, and then there will be a process of sending your email confirmation, and then the process will run smoothly, hopefully, from there while we can get you basically enrolled into the college. So let me just click on, are there any questions? I've got my colleague Becky Clay who's sitting next to me, and so if there are any questions you can type away and I will do my very, very best to answer them. So I'm just going to speak out loud now to Becky and just ask Becky if there's any questions at all.
Hi Joe, we just got a question here saying, I can see that they're a little bit different, but is philosophy much harder than RS?
That's a really interesting question, and it's difficult to say yes or no, but I would say that philosophy, because of the nature of demanding higher GCSE requirements, we are looking for students who have that ability to write well within humanities subjects, English, and so the nature of it would be that we would be looking for students to apply themselves a little bit harder, and I would say there's probably more homework expectations, and the nature of the course is such that you will have more to remember and more to apply. So I guess the answer to that question would be that yes, the expectations probably are a little bit more difficult for philosophy.
And one student here asks, can I do both? I think you mentioned a little bit at the start, they might have missed that.
Yes, thanks Becky. Yeah, good question. Yes, you are allowed to do both. It's absolutely fine. There's pros and cons to doing both. The pro is that you will get topics that will overlap, and so you will become an expert in those particular topic areas. I'd say the disadvantage might be that you might get a little bit bored because you are going over it, you are duplicating it, but that depends on you as a person, whether you think that would play to your strengths or not. But yes, you can absolutely do them alongside each other, or you can do them as 2 separate things. A lot of our students study humanities subjects alongside either subject, so things like psychology, sociology, history, English literature, those blend and support each other really well with essay writing. Are there any other questions, Becky?
Just last question I can see here is, what about the class sizes? How big are the classes?
Good question. So usually around 20. In my year 12 class this year I've got 17, but usually they're around the 20 mark. As I say, that works really well for debates and discussions, but it's not too big, so you'll be in smaller class sizes than you were at GCSE level. Okay, thanks ever so much, Becky. Becky's been sitting alongside me, fielding those questions. If you do have any questions, I can be reached at Solihull Sixth Form College. My name is Joanna Taylor and my colleague is Andrew Hill. If you need to direct any questions to us via email or via reception, please do so. So thank you very much. It was a pleasure to speak to you tonight. Take care. Thank you.